Oh, I see the top of her head.
Creek over there on the other side.
Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And the first few minutes will be for public input. We'll hear from anybody who has comments from the audience on something that's not on the agenda.
Perkins?
Okay. What's your name?
My name's Mike.
Mike?
I take care of the Razorback Greenway and bike trails.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Mike. I'm Chris. And you probably know most everybody. Thanks for taking care of the trails. They're really, they are special. Budget items. Sir, did you, that'll be page 2 of your handout.
This represents what's in the budget that the council just approved.
That's under the 2020 column. Okay.
Brad, is your microphone on?
We have to cover
Hello?
Brad.
Yep.
You got to lean forward, Brad.
The sheet that you've got shows the numbers that are reflected in the 2020 Hello. If all goes well, we should have about a 10% contingency. $5.6 million.
So that middle area under 2020 is what we expect to spend in 2020, 5.6 million.
Yes. It tends to slosh from year to year.
Sure.
But that's what they budgeted for this year.
And there should be maybe a $500,000 excess that would flow to 2021 or whatever.
These funds flow to the next year.
Okay. That's a lot of money that we never used to have.
You had it, I suspect you just didn't see it.
I don't think so either.
We pay attention to 5.
Oh, yeah. We were looking for 1.
1,000 the first time.
Oh, hard surface trails?
Item B is future sources of funds. Is that the? TAP grants, and we'll continue.
2020. The grants from the Walton Foundation. They started paying incrementally up front.
So,
In what increments, please?
It's $1 million per for trail.
And what is Spring Creek?
that's the trail at the where the game it goes by Game and Fish. It'll start where Thunder Chicken stops. It'll go from there to I-49, just before it goes under I-49.
Going north from Thunder Chicken
Going west,
going west.
following the creek.
Okay.
And there's 2 phases. The phase east of 40th Street is a city-funded phase. Phase 2, which is west of 40th Street and on Game and Fish, is funded by the Waltons in a TAP grant.
East of 40th Street, what would
Over
that
here.
be?
Kathy, there's
What is the area east of 40th Street?
It's along the creek and up the hill across Springdale Water property, and then across 40th Street onto Game.
Okay.
Got phase 1 of the trail project. Then we've got the crossing of 40th Street, which is in the 40th Street project. And then we've got phase 2, which is across Game and Fish.
Back up, the crossing of 40th Street, is that going to cross where the chicken trail comes out?
Oh, no, that's up on 56.
No? Is that phase 2? Is that where the chicken hauler trail comes out and goes on to the nature center?
Yes. Where Thunder Chicken ends or starts, that you cross the bridge and the trail ends at the end of the bridge. So from there, the end of the bridge, following the creek to the west to 40th Street is where the phase 1 is. Phase 2 will then cross 40th and go to Interstate 49. And that section's on Game and Fish.
It's going to be called Spring Creek Trail.
Yes.
It says in our minutes, Spring Street.
Typo,
Oh, pardon me?
typo.
Typo. We'll change that. Anything else on the trail funding and where we're at on the trails?
I have
When
one
do we
quick,
start? When does dirt turn?
could I
always my
ask one
question.
quick question, Dean, or Chris, before we begin? The alternative transportation routes we created on Holcomb and Maple, where are we in that? We didn't, but the Walton family generously did this as an option. Where are we in that? Does anybody know where we are in that process?
I certainly do not.
Brad?
Is that what we're calling the demo project? Holcomb
Yes.
and Maple?
Alternative transportation.
Met the 1 year. Spring, I suspect we'll rework.
We're not doing anything at all to evaluate or reevaluate
Been
that
evaluated
project?
continuous project.
Well, we were told it was a year of evaluation. We've exceeded that, or we're probably right at
I
that.
have not seen a report from Bike NWA yet.
Would you ask for us, please? Thank you.
I knew that they were still evaluating, and we were up on the year, but I've not been privileged any reports yet.
Well, I know that Fayetteville has evaluated, and they're making some major changes because of the
That's outside of this committee, isn't it?
citizens' input. Joy, is your microphone on?
Post on Facebook today, and they're asking why.
Oh, this is Fayetteville? Okay.
Did you have a comment, Dean?
No, does that fall within this committee structure, or is that separate? I thought it was separate.
Well, I thought it was because we were working as a partnership for a trail system, that's to connect the pieces with downtown and other parts of our trail. That's the reason why I thought somehow we were
I
talking
think
to
we're-
each other.
It's us, the mayor, city, and Bike NWA
Okay.
all together.
And lane shift,
Pardon me?
lane shift, which is Ryan Reynolds.
Patsy, can you, I'm going deaf, I think. Acoustics in this room are not my favorite.
Lane Shift is a company that Bike NWA hire to put the project together, to do the public input, to do the analysis, to come back with a final report. I don't know that it's been done yet. I haven't seen a draft report yet, but it should be coming out pretty soon. And then once that's done, then we have to sit down and evaluate where we go after that. They do the traffic counts, the surveys, all that kind of stuff, and the input from that. And I haven't seen Paxton, so I don't know where we are on that lately.
I haven't seen Paxton in a while.
Well, I saw him a couple of weeks ago, but I didn't ask him, so.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll
I've just
find
had
out.
lots of questions.
Yeah, so my question on game and fish is, when do we turn dirt?
We got to,
Get it designed first, but I'm not sure. I think we're shooting for hire a consultant to design it until you had the agreement. So we had an engineer on it about 3 or 4 weeks. We met with folks at Game and Fish to try to begin coordination last week.
And I guess we would say that the route changed, correct? And had to go back to the Waltons because that took additional money. And so it's been slowed down.
Do we know when Game and Fish is projected to open to the public? August? It'd be nice if we were built by then. I guess we won't, but it'd be a good target.
That was the original target, because the funding was a little slow getting.
And the change of route.
Change of route as of last week, yes.
What was the change of route?
We had the original route was right along Spring Creek on Game and Fish. Game and Fish last April assured us that they had all the environmental clearances and that they would adjust the walkway for their overlook to give clearance to for our trail to go under. They did neither. So we found out about 2 weeks ago that in order to fix that along that route would be another $650,000. $400 for a bridge and $250 in a TAP grant we wouldn't get because we couldn't. So we met last week to figure out a solution. Trail is now going to go, instead of around the north side of their facility, it's going to come around the south side where we can get environmental clearance.
Does that correct, or correct may not be the right word, does that change the bottom dollar figure? Is that additional money still, that $650,000?
No, the
That's my
change
question.
was to not do that.
That's why I was asking that question.
Yeah, I talked to Jeremy, and he said, work it out because there's no new money. And I said, so I went into the meeting with, worked out, but I don't have a new estimate for the new route. 2 bridges. Hello? The new route eliminates 2 bridges.
Sorry.
The new route eliminates 2 bridges, but it does add some additional length. So that's the trade-off that we're working with right now.
How close is it going to get to the road? Because it was going to cross there at the bridge, right? So you're pushing it up on the ridge more?
The crossing on 40th Street will be shifted south, closer to the south boundary of Game and Fish property. And that will be actually in the 40th Street project is where that crossing is. So that's all McClellan, and they're working through all of it.
Ideally, it would have followed the creek and been prettier, but Game and Fish did not do their part. So, south side and end up at 49, Interstate 49.
It's going to come up behind the tributary to Spring Creek, so it will come along a tree line up west along I-49.
Yeah.
I was concerned that it was just going to head through a pasture, and it's not going to be bad.
Go a little bit, right? Yeah, that's okay.
It's pretty flat across them. The hill is really on the east side.
Yeah, when you come off up from the creek up to the crossing. Anything else on Game and Fish, Spring Street?
I think that's it.
Just waiting on
I should
design,
have
and
some more information our next meeting.
Bit on design.
They have a deadline to meet the Walton requirements, so they're working toward that. They have not moved the original deadline for their design so far.
Okay.
Well, the elimination of 2 bridges would be a significant amount of time saved there
Construction.
on construction.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So maybe August is a good date, as Dean requests.
We should try.
We should try. Absolutely. Anything else?
Ought to get me covered.
Patsy, would you give us an update on Emma Street. Wow.
We have 90% plans. We have the first draft of the contract document and the bid specs pretty much ready to go forward with this one. Basically, what you're seeing is here is if you're standing on top of the Shiloh Square and you're looking across down the Greenway. This is the Greenway that goes down through there. I can only, oh, it does on both sides. That's on top of the box culvert. Basically, what we're doing is putting improvements on the top of the box culvert rather than trying to open it up. Because if you open it up like you do we did on Walter Turnbow Park, we lose a lot of this parking area on this side, and the property owner of that's not willing to give up that. So we're really trying to realign it. This takes that big curve out. You don't come back around. You don't go down. This is all regraded so that it's a nice gentle slope to get across the Greenway as it is now. That's looking south from Emma across to Shiloh Square, and that's looking from Meadow Street. What you see here is we're putting a series of boxes on top of the box culvert with plantings in them, similar to what you would see as a rooftop garden, because the weight of those boxes has to be minimized with the kind of materials that's put in there, because there's a certain amount of tonnage that you can put on there per square foot, and we've worked all that out. What we're trying to do is create the image of a natural area through that on top of a box culvert. It's basically what it comes down to. So you can see there are a series of them down through there with different sized trees. Most of the trees will be at least 2-inch caliper or bigger, because that's what the grant says we'll put in. Uses the same kind of lighting that we have on the other side of Emma Street. It will have benches and places to sit, places for people to gather. Some of those islands or some of those boxes will have the ability to put art in them. We can incorporate some of that into it. It will have similar lighting to what we have along Turnbow Park. This is as if you're coming down the Greenway going towards Emma Street. Then at Emma Street, we have, which right now with the numbering of the Greenway is mile 13. So we're trying to play on that and create a downtown plaza at mile 13. And this is on the south side of the street, allows us to have plazas on both sides. On the right side of the picture is the building that Multicraft has. Being able to create a plaza on that side, they'll be able to have an entrance coming out of their building if they want to on that side. Have the ability to put tables, people can gather there, there can be events there, those kind of things can happen at that location. The other side, the mile 13, as you can see, you can climb on it and have pictures. We're trying to create a place in downtown Springdale to come and have your picture made at mile 13. You may have heard some rumors about discussion of renumbering the Greenway, starting at the starting point being moved to Kessler Mountain instead of where it is now in Fayetteville. There's a lot of discussion. I personally like mile 13, but you know, if we're going to renumber it, let's do it now so we can put mile whatever this is going to be. If it has to be 15 or 16, or you know, I think they're adding 2 to 3 miles to it on the south end. It can continue to the north all the way to the Missouri line, and that doesn't affect anything. But once we set a new location on the south end, it has to stay there. So,
What's the time frame from their decision on that versus this?
they know they got to decide right away.
Okay.
And there's some things going to be happening after the first of the year to discuss a little bit further. That gives you a look at it from the other side, mile 13. It will have lighting similar to what you see in Turnbow Park, the ability to have different color lights inside of the numbers and the letters. We hope we're still working on that. Be able to bring, you know, you could set up a band there, you could have a concert, you know, that kind of stuff could go with it. This is looking on down the Greenway, and that's what it looks like at night. The idea of this is to have it ready so that it can go along with the improvements to Luther George Park, so that we don't have contractors coming in at the same time, mobilization twice, and that's kind of where we're working on that. So I think what you see is a total change in what downtown Springdale looks like with this as the new look of the Greenway across Emma Street. And then this makes the connection to The Bank of America property, and I'll just tell you that we were supposed to close tomorrow. And unless the mayor saw something today, we still haven't seen any closing documents, but we're supposed to close on that property hopefully before the end of the year, and it being donated to the city, and so that will become part of that extension, as starting at the Greenway all the way through downtown. So, anybody have any questions?
As far as the crossing goes, will we have like some smart signals there, or some, what are we going to do there to protect?
We've thrown around different kinds of ideas and how we do this, and I don't know that a final decision is made. The part I didn't tell you is this whole section of Emma Street is designed to be closed. We will put bollards that come up out of the street on Holcomb Street and at Commercial Street or Spring Street, so we can close that whole area, the whole area if it becomes a plaza. As far as the actual lighting or marking, I know they're looking at 2 or 3 different types of, you know, we've got the flashers in the street. They just don't really work very well. They're not very bright. We don't necessarily want to put a hawk up there. And we talked about the idea of maybe making it on the Greenway where you got to get off your bike and you got to walk through. It's not an area you ride through, so there's not as much conflict. I don't know. That's still one of those things that we've been tossing around, trying to figure out how do we make this more visible so that people are comfortable with coming across. I know bikers don't want to get off their bike and have to
I think they'll
walk
just
across.
avoid it.
You think so?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really do. Will that be like a speed table? Or will it be raised right there?
That's what we talked about now, a speed table with a different kind of surface across it, so
Okay.
that when you're driving through there, we're taking out the turning lanes, so you won't have any stacking through there. We're eliminating some of the parking along there too.
Taking out the turning lane?
Just to be a short turning lane right here at Spring Street, not any longer than it is now. A couple of cars is all we'll get there, and then it is designed for the street to close itself.
I think once Dean's Trail gets opened, that you'll find that people will hit, as they're coming from the south, they're right there at the rodeo and the Jones Center, they're going to come down Emma Street and just come right on down and avoid that.
Come down the street itself rather
Yep.
than coming down the Greenway.
Yep.
And with a share the road type of an arrangement rather than a dedicated bike lane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Coming from the other direction though, if you're coming from the north going south, how do you miss it?
Well, if you're coming from the north going south, you'll just turn left and go down Emma Street.
And go all the way back out that direction
yeah,
instead of,
yeah.
I mean, once you get across Emma Street from there on down,
Well, right now, when you get there, you know, you've got to take that kind of that detour around where the airport is and cross whatever that street is, Park Street.
yeah, you just come around Luther George Park and you go straight down Park Street to go
Yeah,
on.
I mean, it's just, that, I think most bikers are going to want to kind of hit the fewer number of turns, fewer stops, fewer crossings and all that kind of stuff.
The really serious bikers who are out there for a long ride, you mean?
Yeah.
Or just families coming through town?
Well, families coming through town will probably go right through there.
My wife and I ride that from time to time, and we take the trail. I wouldn't ride down Emma.
Yeah. And I think there's going to be 2 groups.
Yeah.
There are going to be some who are very serious bikers that they don't want to go through
Bikers
that.
are going to be moving
Yeah.
about the same speed as traffic.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not a big
Yeah.
deal. We're not that serious.
right.
So clarification, 90% plans, so it's ready to go to bid.
It'll be ready to go when Luther George Park moves forward.
That was,
Right.
it'll be a part of Luther George Park, and
It
when
will
that-
be a separate component, but we want to bid it all at the same time so we have the same contractor doing the same work. That's the plan right now, so.
When is that timing?
Well, probably 2021 before we go to construction with Luther George Park. Yeah, right, Mayor? Oh, he left. That's what he was saying yesterday. Probably late 20, early 2021, unless we can work out some other kind of arrangement for doing this separately. Right now, that's the track we're on, and the information we're getting from the Walton Foundation. This is a totally funded project by them. There's no city match in this one.
If it's totally funded by them, is it worth the ask?
Well, I ask on a regular basis. When we get our plan already finished and ready to go, then we're going to say, okay, guys, how soon can we start? And we got a couple of little issues yet to deal with, and that one of them is the crossing. and getting all the final documents together, and then we'll be ready to go.
I mean,
And then water and sewer has some sewer lines they need to, some utility upgrades that need to be done while this is working going on, and we still have that utility relocation to do, I mean, coordination that has to be done too, so.
okay, well, I mean, just 2021 is,
It'll be here before we know it,
I
but yeah,
know.
yeah.
Would rather it be sooner than later. So,
I agree. You're not gonna get any argument out of me.
any
We've been
other-
working on this one a long time.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments on Emma? Dean's Trail, update.
Yes, we're designing. I received the categorical exclusion today, which means the environmental's cleared
Okay.
on Phase 2.
Hey, Brad, closer, please.
Good grief, I gotta
Sorry, I
swallow
didn't
it.
design this building.
We got the environmental clearance from the Highway Department on Phase 2 today. I believe all the properties have been appraised and are now in review appraisal to acquire the property. I didn't get an email back from Garver. I asked about the Phase 2 is designed. They've moved on to begin designing Phase 3.
So Phase 2 is designed,
Is designed,
so more than 90% plans.
yes, 90 or 100.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
believe
it's-
I believe it's gone down to RDOT already for review. But I was waiting for Garver to give me that.
Get the approval from RDOT, then we do property acquisition, and then we go to bid.
There's a fair bit of water line and utility work to do in there, so.
Dang old water department
Yeah.
anyway. So sometime in the spring, we could hopefully go to bid, get started, and that's the tunnel.
That's the tunnel.
Cool. It's going to be exciting to have a tunnel.
So is that just the tunnel?
That's the tunnel where it would come out, and then it would go east to
Right. The school.
Oriole. And then Phase 3 goes,
Under Hunt and on down to Fayetteville? Okay.
Phase, 3A.
3A down to the animal shelter.
Yeah. We do need to look at your packet. The original alignment that we looked at is the yellow line, and it goes, kind of follows the creek, but it bisects a single property owner. So we went back and, the staff has gone back and looked at the green alignment, which does not bisect the property, and gives us an opportunity maybe to get easements a little cheaper and not conflict with the property owner, and gives the schools the opportunity to have a close connection. So we need to decide on which route we would prefer. Is that correct?
Not following.
Okay, here. Okay, this would be, that would stay back to the tunnel. Because this is a single property owner.
Dewey's, right?
Yeah, and then come down here. This is a single property owner. So instead of going this way, we would take the green route along the edge of the property and then, go around it.
It looks like it's longer. What's the cost impact of the alternate?
I haven't got that yet. It'll be about the same.
I would suspect it'll be the same because we'll have less of acquisition.
Right.
Easement acquisition, and that's a pretty flat section of property. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4 drainage crossings that you so I would suspect it'd be the same, if not a little less.
And since the line down the east side of that property shares an easement with a power line easement, I would go ask if they would donate it. Since there's already an easement there, ask if they would
That would be nice.
So we're not gonna
Yeah, because if my math's right, when we don't have the whole map, there's 8 turns in a 1/10 of a mile, 1/4 of a mile run there. You come under under 412, you got a sharp left, then we got a sharp right to come down by the road to the school.
8.
There's a lot of turns in a,
That is true. But we're not bisecting a property owner. And who knows what he might want in there or not. Has anybody had, I haven't had any conversation with him. Has anybody had any conversation?
Not yet. I talked to Ernest, who does our right-of-way negotiation when we reach an impasse, and he said, yes, he thought it would probably be significantly cheaper to take the green route. So, but until we get to appraisal and negotiations, we don't know for sure.
Right. Somebody needs to have that conversation with the property owner.
I'll go track him down.
Okay. Because he might say, I don't care if you run it down the center. But
property owner.
Patsy, sorry, who's the property owner on Dean's 2, the big industrial property that we would bisect? Greg Edwards. We'll have that conversation.
So is this top part also this done then? Because originally we were just going to follow the drainage, now we're going around it with, like Keith said, extra sharp turns. So
That's what we were sitting here talking about, is the
Right.
sharp turns.
The northern end of that is the school, and they said no.
Yeah, the school did not want us on their property.
They said go
I
around.
mean, they didn't mind us going along the edge of it, but they didn't want us to cut it in half.
Well, I
No,
was-
that's not, I'm not talking about that,
Talking
I'm talking
about
about
half.
further north than that. The last little inch of colored space up there, here.
Over past the north of the yellow.
Right. That's what I'm asking about, that property.
Didn't want to cut that.
They didn't want to do that?
They didn't want us.
Did we ask, or we just assumed?
No, that was asked.
It was asked.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I mean, we could condemn. We have that ability, but I don't think that's what we would want to do.
Has somebody had this conversation with, particularly the northern, whoever owns that property, about this really sharp turn? I mean, can it be softened for those who ride?
Yes.
And still no compromise?
Probably.
All
But
of
he
these
did not
turns
want
will
us
be
to bisect
radiused.
it.
Well, I wasn't looking at bisecting, I was looking at taking,
Yeah, that real sharp corner on
Yeah.
the edge.
softening that. So that if you're coming down at any speed, you don't run into a 90-degree turn, which I think sound, and I don't ride the trails, to be honest with you, just doesn't sound like a,
I mean, we're addressing that at Emma right now with the whole mile
Exactly.
13 stuff, so
Thank you.
why create another problem that
Thank
we're going to
you.
have to address later?
exactly. So that's my question. If that can, if those conversations can happen, and somebody sits down over a cup of coffee with cookies,
Going to make the cookies.
I'll be glad to.
could plant
I just
some.
think as a bike rider, and also just aesthetically, if I never was on the trail, I just think the sharp turns are not
Yeah,
your
I-
first choice by a long stretch.
Right.
You know, I understand property owner doesn't want his property dissected, I get that, but, yeah, if we can soften these up, that'd make a big difference.
Definitely.
We can certainly look at that as,
That's true.
that 90-degree hard turn is a little harsh.
Are there other ones north off the page that are tight 90s as well?
They're going to have to be as soon as you come out from underneath the tunnel.
When you come out from under the tunnel, it's a hard 90.
That's going to create two bridges that I didn't originally think we were planning to pay for. creek drainage. There's got to be some way to get across it. When you come under the tunnel, you're going to have to go across that drainage twice, a very short distance. You're going to cross it going east, and then you're going to cross it going west on both sides of Dewey's property.
There'll be a bridge.
There's got to be something.
Where the creek comes under 412, we're going to be
You'll be west of the drainage, and you have to cross it twice.
cross drainage here and have drainage here.
Correct.
Yeah, and that's in the design.
That's it.
So
That's-
we'll, pardon me?
This changed because of the property owner, correct? Originally, it was going to just come under 412 and just go straight, follow the creek, basically.
Correct. That was our original desire.
Yeah, it was just going to follow the low point all the way through.
But then working with the property owner and understanding his feelings. And you can't go, we're
I'm not
gonna
looking at a.
get some insight.
I'm not looking at a map, but I remember, I think I remember this very well in this whole discussion. And I thought everybody was in on that. And so we were able, because of the way we were phasing it, it needed to terminate somewhere that made sense. So we were gonna, because he's donating the right of way, we're trying to work with the property owner. And we were gonna, not bisect his property. We couldn't go west, had to go east, and we wanted to get it to the sidewalk on, what is that, Oriole?
Oriole, yes.
Okay. And that was the whole thinking behind that. It may create a 90. Hey, folks, we may have some 90s, and we'll just have to use our brakes and slow down a little bit. That's gonna happen sometime.
That, your recollection is my recollection.
Yeah.
So we're moving forward with Phase 3A, and that would go under Don Tyson and past or end on the south side of the animal shelter property. Are we going to look at a trailhead possibility?
We asked him to take a look at it, we'll see if it's in the money.
Okay.
Which part was he donating? There along the road going to the school?
I have an appraisal on that property that's been sent to RDOT, but Dewey Johnson has already
Trying to avoid that.
given me the acquisition documents for that property. So
And-
as the plan stands right now, we have all of the easements that are needed. I have an appraisal out, but I'm not allowed to see it until RDOT approves it. So if it comes back a dollar amount, either Dewey Johnson has the ability to donate it to the city, or we will pay him the appraised amount that's approved by RDOT.
Has he given,
I may have misspoken when I said he's donating, because I'm not sure about that. I assumed it, and I know he was very happy with us changing.
Well, because
I may not be remembering that right.
Either which way, we will have a dollar amount to offer Dewey Johnson once it's approved by RDOT.
wonder if he would, right there where it runs along the road, if he would go in just a little bit further, and then instead of making, 90 degrees coming down along the road and then another 90, if you could just bow that just a little bit.
We've acquired as the plans show that are approved by RDOT.
My concern's not the 90s near the tunnel. You're used to, there's 90s all over the Greenway near tunnels, Fayetteville, Bentonville. It's when you get down on that straight section, you're picking up speed and you're not used to having to maneuver around a tunnel. That, the 90 shown on the plan we have here, I think would be the more concerning one, in my opinion.
The tunnel one will be the most concerning one, right? Because we know what it's like down at Fayetteville, down where you cross MLK, you come out of that tunnel.
Well, if you've got enough to where you can see, I don't know.
Yeah, that one's a tough one. That's by far the worst one on the Greenway. Except maybe the new one there in Bentonville where you come off the hill, but yeah, that one's tough. But
well, there won't be much visibility of the trail coming south out of the tunnel because it's going to turn quick.
rest of this has good visibility, though. You can see on this. It reminds me a lot more of there in Rogers. If you can see the turns aren't as bad. It's when they're blind that they're hard.
True.
Yeah. like Fayetteville, right? That's a blind turn, and they've got a couple of them down there, so.
Well, and they've got sensors on a couple of them that when there's somebody in there, they'll flash. Is that something we can consider adding to the?
We talked about this, though. The tunnel's going to come back up, right? So you're going to get a natural slowdown. Just geography is going to help, right? Because when you're coming up, you're going to be slowing down anyway.
South going north, but north
Yeah.
going south, so you're going to be picking up
Up
speed.
speed.
Oh, so we're coming down, coming south.
Yeah.
Brad, do you have any number, or Chris, do you have any numbers on what those flashing lights cost?
They're not terribly expensive, so.
But I think your point is well taken, because if you're coming downhill and there's suddenly a 90-degree angle, it seems an invitation for somebody to really get hurt.
I know that one at the co-op that you're speaking of on MLK down there, I pay attention to that sign very closely, and if it's flashing, I'll go as slow as I can through that tunnel, because it may not be a bicyclist through there, it may be a person walking through there, or I've even found them sitting in there before.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'd rather have that tunnel with that turn 1,000 times out of 1,000 times than try to cross that road.
Well, true.
So I would take the tunnel every day.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have some work to do, clearly, and we'll get on it and get her done.
So who's going to contact Greg Edwards and just ask?
Let me know when you need the cookies.
Thanks, Brad. Any other questions or comments on this route, short of benevolence on Mr. Edwards' part? We'll look at the green route.
Soften corners.
With softened corners, yes.
And possibly flashing lights.
Yes.
I mean, we got a lot of wins there. You know, we're going under the road. That's a win. We got 2 schools on the trail. Those are big wins. So there's a lot of wins in there. You know, these are, you smooth those turns a little bit, and it's, you know.
The ability from those kids on the north side of 412 to get to their middle school by bike or walking is huge. I'm going to switch and talk about signage first. We've had a lot of talk about signage and signage standards. Do we need to have a subcommittee to look at signage, or?
I checked with regional planning and the active transportation committee and said, are there standards existing? And they said the only standards in place are for the Greenway only. And I asked them to consider having a regional, in that committee, discussion about signs. The mayor and I attended a meeting a month ago where they talked about color codes and standardizing markings and signage for Northwest Arkansas. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, and a lot of that discussion was about on-street infrastructure, so that if we pick a color, that it's the same in every city in the region, and but we did touch on signage too, and I think that would be applicable to separated infrastructure too. But they're trying to. I think we're recognizing the need for cities to be consistent with the type of signage we use and what, you know, colors, what shapes, you know, what they look like. I'm sure I know there are national standards, and
there's new standards.
There was a person there from the Tool Group that helped us a little bit as helped us through that discussion a little bit. But I think there's a recognition that it would be smart for all the cities to work together and determine things like what signage looks like and what pavement markings, so that people will recognize them regardless of what city they're in.
Mayor, before you go, weren't there some limitations attached to the Greenway with the Waltons?
Well, like the
We can't
wayfinding
just
type,
can't put
the signage on the Greenway, there are some.
I remember that conversation. I don't remember specifically, but
Yeah,
I remember there were limits on what, because it all It was,
Right.
there was a universal, everybody agreed that those wayfaring signs, all the signs on the trail, on the greenway, they were contractually agreed to.
Right.
So we can't,
Yeah, and I don't think, I think going forward, I think as we build new, like Dean's Trail, that's not part of the Greenway, I just think it needs to, we need to be thoughtful about making them, whatever
I
markings
really don't
we do,
disagree. I just
the same.
didn't want to risk
Yeah.
the contractual agreement we had
Right.
with the family for the greenway
Right.
itself. That's what I was bringing up.
I don't know if that answered anything, but we had that discussion, so. But that was through, that was regional planning, that was. we were
So,
talking about that.
so are they working on it? Do they have a committee?
I wouldn't say I walked away from there knowing they were working on it, but I think it was, recognized and agreed upon. Now Fayetteville wasn't there, but Rogers and Bentonville and Springdale were all represented, and I think we all recognized that would be a good thing. But how far? That's just been a month ago or so. What regional planning has done with that so far, I couldn't guess.
Okay. Well, it only makes sense that all the cities have a standard.
Right.
So we'll work with regional planning and see if they're going to take on that project, and hopefully they will, and
Yeah.
we can participate.
We'll keep pushing them. Brad and Patsy are here, and they're both engaged with regional planning, and as well as me, and we'll keep pushing that conversation. But that conversation really started with pavement color, talking about on-street infrastructure. But then it sort of, the conversation kind of evolved into signage as well, and other street markings.
Yeah. Thank you.
Tool Group helped develop the upcoming national standard. We've been waiting for about 3 years for that to be published. You know, when they do that, there'll be a standard nationally, and what usually follows from that is MUTCD. That's the Bible for how you do on-street and signage markings. That will come out, and I suspect everybody's been waiting to see what that was, is why there hadn't been much movement so far.
That impact, at the end of the day, Brad, what we've already done to then meet those standards? Will there be a very high cost?
The council adopts those standards, so it's the kind of thing that you could adopt them and grandfather in certain things, and we work on that over
Okay.
time if you're looking back, so.
Yes, ma'am.
There is one other discussion going on. The Greenway will be 5 years old this upcoming year, and it is in need of some upgrading of the signage. Like the mile markers are getting kind of faded. There is a group looking at, do we wrap them with something? Do we do something different? Do we do a different scheme? Do we get, the Greenway hasn't been marketed. If you want a Greenway shirt, you can't get one. If you want anything that's got the Greenway on it, you can't get it. So there has been some discussion with the family members on how we move forward with creating a marketing capability and to upgrade the signs. I mean, the city doesn't have the money to replace all those mile markers or have them all painted. So we're looking at a couple of schemes. There's some out there that are kind of floated around that are a little different, let's put it that way. I think the idea after the first of the year, the Northwest Council may take up bringing together a group to talk about how we upgrade the Greenway, to talk about the decision of whether we renumber it. What do we do with those kind of things? How do we handle wayfinding with that? The signs that are all out there now, as you said, as part of a wayfinding package on the Greenway that was paid for by the Walton Family Foundation grant. But it doesn't address everything that's out there now. I mean, we started with a small package and we haven't moved forward with that. So I think, they hired Misty Murphy to be the coordinator on the regional basis for the Greenway, and then she came to work for us and they didn't replace her, and it really hasn't happened then. But I think there's a real push to do something with that now. What form that takes, we'll kind of have to wait till after the first of the year and see what's going on. But if we're going to have this ready for the 5th anniversary, that's July. that's not much time, you know. And it's just amazing to me that the Greenway has been there 5 years. It seems like we just did it a couple of years ago, but time goes faster when you're having fun. So, yeah.
Thanks, Betsy. And speaking of the tool group, circle back to our master planning process that we've talked about. We were going to use the tool group to develop a master plan for us, and they got bushwhacked by the Northwest Arkansas Council, is that correct? To do a regional planning to do a regional plan. So we step back to wait. When they get finished with that, I assume we will go back and engage them or someone to help us with our master plan, Trails Master Plan. So we need to keep that in mind and keep that in mind for funding as well. So. Yeah, yeah. So on the signage standards, we'll stay engaged with regional planning and so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Yes?
I didn't know if y'all were about to wrap up or not, and I asked if anything had been said about Pump Station. And because that's another grade crossing we're eliminating when the new bridge is built.
Has that been approved?
Yeah, Brad, can you give us an update? I think we're within a month or two of bidding that, we hope.
We've got appraisals done. Megan has the latest on the appraisals.
I have 2 of the 6 appraisals for those properties. I will have the rest of the properties by the end of the week. The appraisal process and me acquiring those properties takes 40 days from start to finish. After that, you're good to bid the project. At the start of next week, we'll more than likely have give or take 40 days for all 6 properties to be fully acquired.
Thank you, Megan.
And we have some utilities to read.
Betsy, I can't hear you.
Why do they have to acquire more property since it's the bridge that already washed out? Are they putting it in the same place or moving it?
They're widening it to 2 lanes, so they need additional space on each side.
And
It's also being raised, which means your approaches go further away from the bridge.
it also means the trail goes under that bridge instead of trying to cross the road there.
Good.
Which was blind, both for traffic and for bikes.
All of the property owners.
All of the property owners are agreeable. They just have not seen a figure. We only have 2 of the 6 properties back, but the figures that I've gotten on the first 2 properties are not astronomically high. They're basically lower than a lot of the street projects that I've done any other acquisition on. So they're pretty low, and from my understanding, their conversations with Reed and Associates, they're very excited for this project to move along, and they're all agreeable to the documents as soon as we can get them to them.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Megan.
You're welcome.
I had some other questions on other topics when we get to it, so.
Pardon me?
I said, I had some questions on other topics when we get to them.
Go for it.
So the big beautiful bridge at the Lake Springdale Trailhead that the next storm might wash away, because every storm it keeps washing those banks out. Are we ever going to do anything about that? I mean, we've got safety tape up on a major bridge on our greenway right now.
It's in the works. We've got a group that we've contracted to the wall that's tipped to get it jacked into place. Public Works is going to put large rock all the way down that creek that keeps eroding. So it's already moving ahead.
So do you have a time frame, Brad? Because I've
Next
been
couple
sent several
weeks.
pictures. Okay. Because it really is
We ask them
scary looking.
to be available to jack the wall in place before the end of the year. I don't think they're quite going to make it, but they're on go.
That is a heavily, heavily used part of the greenway in Springdale, so that's good. And when they do those rocks, because obviously you're going to put something really substantial there, because when it floods, it floods. Are they going to even tier it or anything like that to make it aesthetic a little bit? Plus, that you do it a certain way, the kids can get down to the creek, because the kids love that creek. Matter of fact, it's like a lake in the summer when they're out there with their inner tubes floating under the bridge, which is always fun.
But it'll be large
Oh, just rock, yeah.
You can see, if you look under the 40th Street Bridge in Spring Creek, you can see what it'll look like, because we just
Okay.
did that. That'll give you some idea of what we're dealing with.
Well, you can also look back up along the north bank of the lake. We had to go back in and stabilize that some years ago.
That was Mayor Sprouse's favorite design choice. I remember you said, I wish we could have done something under those big rocks, but the grass grew over it. Fitzgerald Connector. By the way, I love that mountain. I've got beautiful pictures of icicles from yesterday if you want to see them.
The last I heard, there's still one property owner they haven't been able to get to even talk to us yet. So once we get that one, I think they'll be ready to come forward with it. Beyond that, I don't know.
So we haven't seen anything. Do we even know where the route is?
Roughly we do, but not.
Can
a
you
full
roughly
concept yet.
tell us?
Well, they have a railroad crossing coming out from the property that Dr. McAvoy owned. It comes through that subdivision, follows the creek, comes down along Public Facilities Board property down on the west side of their property, crosses that spur, which is still a question, whether or not the railroad will allow them to cross that spur or not, or whether it has to shift on over and cross the street before you get to.
Okay.
And then it comes down in front of Conair. No, what's that industry that's on there?
Rockline?
Rockline, yeah, all the way down to Huntsville, and then they'll take Huntsville over to tie into the Jones Center. It's roughly where it is.
Okay.
It's the railroad crossing and that one property owner coming out of the subdivision that they still don't have agreements with. And I haven't heard anything from the railroad in a little while. I mean, it's a spur, it's not an active trail, but they're still discussing that.
And that's a project that we as a committee are not involved with.
Right, it's
a Walton.
It's a Northwest Arkansas Trailblazers working directly with the Walton Foundation to put that entire package together. When they get it all together, they'll bring it to us. They build it and then they give it to us like they did with the trails up there. So.
I mean, it's important, just the same as getting the trail out to Kessler was important to Fayetteville, right? It gets us out to the soft surface trails, which are have fairly decent. They're well used right now. They're perfectly used from a maintenance perspective. They're keeping the trail, the weeds down. I mean, it looks great, and he keeps fixing stuff.
That's it.
Is there any more talk about the Tyson route from their headquarters to Emma Street?
I don't think that's dead, but I don't think that's high on their priority list right now. That's just my, that's what I'm inferring, just the lack of conversation.
Okay.
Yeah, and we're not involved in that either.
Oops. Oh, well, I was going to say on with Shaw Park coming, which is when's that? That'll be after Dean's Trail. I would think that's got to be pretty high on the list. Is finishing it from the Game and Fish over towards Shaw. The problem is they keep building houses out there, so there's running out of right-of-ways to get to it now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's, Water and Sewer owns a big piece of that property, but you got to get to it and you got to get away from it. So,
Yeah, I don't know that any of the houses, any of the residential construction is threatening that connection. Well, at least to water and sewer and through water and sewer property. Now, when we get up to the top of the hill there,
Exactly. Yeah.
then you know, we're probably going to have to do something along the street to the, but it's not going to be very far from there to the park.
yeah,
And yeah, so
That's probably something we should look at. Yeah, it's the top of the hill, right? It's
Uh-huh.
not down and not the hillsides. It's up to the top.
Yeah, there. If I remember right, Chris, and I hadn't been on that property in a long time, but we kind of identified two access points. One at the big clearing at the top of the hill, behind Alita, the state police facility. And then another one could connect to the subdivision. Kind
It goes up
of
that
just
that little
east
draw.
east of Shaw Elementary.
It would go up that draw that goes off to the west.
There was some power lines up over there somewhere too.
But I wouldn't doubt it.
Somewhere out there, yeah, I was looking at a map, somewhere out there, there's some high-tension power lines. You could always possibly sneak a trail up under those power lines.
Yeah. I mean, that's been talked about, but it hadn't hit our priority list yet. Mayor doesn't give us enough money.
I gotta buy a printing press.
We appreciate all you do. I mean, going from not a $700,000 budget, not being able to get one, to having about $5.5 million. Thank you.
Could I ask one quick question, Chris? Patsy, you were going to put, and maybe you haven't, I missed it, a list of what our trail has cost the city versus private dollars. Has that list been compiled yet for anybody to see? I know you've been working on it, and I know it's the holidays. Just asking.
Bah humbug.
Oh.
I lost a staff person, and that
Oh.
time to do that kind of stuff hasn't happened yet.
Oh.
But I put some of it together because I had to have some of it for the last two Walton grants. But it's the most recent stuff, so I got to go back to what we did with the Greenway and start there. But I hope to have that done sometime early next year.
It's okay. I think that the general public, the
Yeah.
people that live here in Springdale,
I think you'll
would
be
be
surprised
extraordinarily impressed with
how much trail we've gotten for what little investment the
Exactly.
city has put into it, yeah.
That's a
So
good
thanks,
point,
Betsy.
because the city has leveraged
Yes.
property and other assets and not cash to get the amount of trails that we've gotten. It's really good.
I think we would be very impressed,
And the other cities would be very jealous.
quite possibly.
Anything else? The last thing I have is, do we want to continue to meet every month? Seems like every so often, I mean, suggestion?
Not trying to make you have more meetings, but, and I apologize, I missed the conversation. It sounds like y'all already touched on the demonstration
Yes.
project.
You would be.
Well, I
Welcomed.
think we need to get with Lane Shift and get whatever information they've got. Okay, because we've got to, this is just my thoughts on it. And I'm not going to say I don't care. I'm going to say I don't have a preference. I'm trying to learn not to say I don't care, because that doesn't come out right, but I really don't care. What that ultimately ends up like, we need guidance from you all. Because, I mean, hey, that's the way I ride from my house to downtown, but I'm not going to drive what we do there. But I know all I ask is that you all give us some good guidance about, I'm talking about Maple and Holcomb specifically. And if they stay on Maple and Holcomb, and I don't know where else we don't cross at Maple. But my big ask is that whatever we decide, whatever we ultimately decide and y'all come up with, is that then Public Works mills it, gets it milled, new asphalt. If paint's involved, we do paint, striping, we get it right, so it doesn't look like we just did it on the, a lick and a promise. So, but we don't want to invest that money until we know what we want to do. But I think we need to be coming to that before long, because I don't think it's really safe right now. It's hard to read, it's hard to navigate, and with the work, I'm not blaming the water department, but with that work, that helped complicate that intersection a little bit. And we need to get figured out what we want to do, what we need to do, and then get it done right. That's just my thought.
Which would mean we would not meet every other month. We'd meet every month and get until we get a couple of these issues behind us.
Yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, I've got a comment on the not meeting every month eventually. I think if we, for me at least, if we just had a reference, it could be on the city's website or something we do just within the committee, but where we are on each trail that's actively being discussed, you know, we in design, environmental, or we out for bid, whatever, we got property acquisition. I just never feel like I understand where we are, when we're going to start. It could be a range. We wouldn't have to say we're going to start construction in May. It could be we expect second half 2020 or something like that. It doesn't have to be too specific, but I come to all these meetings and I still don't feel like I have any sense a lot of times of where we are with these trails.
I'm with you.
It's lost on me somehow. It always seems vague. Maybe that's intentional, but people are asking us as members of the Trails Committee, where are we on something? Yeah.
Dean, but to your point, Dean, I think that's why it's important that this committee continues to meet monthly.
Right.
So that we feel like we have an idea of what we can tell people. When we move to every other month, things get lost in the weeds. Now, that's just my thoughts.
I concede that it was a bad idea.
No, it's always worth discussing.
Well, things are moving now, you know? Things
Yeah,
are
I know.
moving. And I think we do need to meet on a regular basis,
Got
on a
several
monthly
tasks.
basis. Yeah.
It would be good for all of us to meet with Bike NWA.
Why don't we invite them to the next meeting to bring us up to date, but
And make the recommendation,
Yeah.
see what their thoughts are.
I'd like to
I
know
know there's
what,
going to be pressure from the community to pull those things up, but they provide safety, but they're ugly, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, have we talked about, I know what the mayor's talking about, cleaning up the appearance, but if we had a poured curb or something that was more attractive, I don't know what that cost, and if that's manageable or not, but, you know, my inclination is always going to be to keep them as safe as possible, protected, essentially. But I think the appearance is god-awful right now.
Yeah.
You know,
Agreed.
between the street being torn up like the mayor talked about, and the actual zebras, which are sort of offensive in a general sense. I mean, I know that was temporary, they were done for reasons, you pull them back out, but if the option is to pull them out and have a less safe path, or doing something that's more aesthetically pleasing, that is safe, that we can afford, you know, I would still be pushing pretty hard for that.
I think the process, I don't think it'll be any more painful. I hope it'll be less painful than what Dick Smith was. And I think y'all landed at a good place there, because at least I'm not hearing any,
right.
my phone's not ringing about it.
Mine
So-
is.
Hmm?
Mine is.
Is it? Well,
I'm more available.
send them to me.
No, I'm not doing
So,
that. I'm just looking for
I
answers
think-
that I can share with people.
Yeah.
I do think that the green planters should go bye-bye.
Oh, I was talking about Dick Smith.
Oh, you're, okay, well, I'm over back on,
No, I promise you, we've still got issues on Holcomb. and
that's what we were
Maple. That's
discussing
what we need
earlier,
to get-
okay.
that's what
I'm
we
on a
need to get
different
done.
conversation.
Yeah.
Forgive me.
Do we think that what we wound up with on Dick Smith should inform Maple and Holcomb?
We'll look.
Okay.
I think we ended up with the best solution that we could come up with.
Well, the people seem to, so back to, forget Holcomb and Maple and all that, those people I have not heard from. So I think that group they were included in the conversation, that it made a world of difference when there was a final decision made.
I think when we're talking about Maple and Holcomb, we need to engage the DSA and the businesses. I mean, you know, Holcomb's a different animal than Dick Smith was, in that you don't have residential all along there, and you've got a very wide street, like Dick Smith was. But Maple, you know, I think if we had a different type of barrier and it was marked well, or even if we had no barrier and it was marked well, you know, I can make the argument. Look, I just got back from the Netherlands riding on stuff where a lot of places shared the road, and a volume street with what Maple carries, I wouldn't be uncomfortable at all. Now, some people might. So but those are things to consider.
New CEO of the hospital, though, he expressed to me that within the hospital frontage, he appreciated having that, and his people did, because it calms the traffic, and they feel a lot safer.
It makes those crosswalks a lot safer.
And when you get to the open part of Maple, there's a lot that could be considered. So,
I was going to say, some of the feedback that I got on Dick Smith, the two main items that I got from the neighbors there after we started working on it was leave parking on one side. And the other one that surprised me was they said where we left the zebras, align them with traffic and take every other one out, because that lets mail and delivery trucks get through. And with those changes, they were pretty happy.
So you'll work to get them here for the next,
Still think it's safer the way it was.
looking for? Yeah. Okay. So next meeting, we will have that discussion with them. Anything else? Any other business? We're adjourned. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for.
And Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thanks, Mayor.